Welcome to Deep Crimes Uncovered, where real mysteries are brought back into the light. For over 50 years, the Zodiac Killer's most cryptic message went unsolved. Until now. For over half a century, a chilling message from one of history's most notorious serial killers, the Zodiac, lay hidden in plain sight. His 340-character cipher taunted everyone. Investigators, amateur detectives, you name it. But what if I told you that after 51 long years, this infamous code was finally broken? And the words it concealed? They're even more disturbing than anyone probably imagined. This isn't just about cracking a code. It's about staring right into the mind of a murderer who thought he was untouchable. Picture Northern California in the late 1960s and early 70s. A shadowy figure calling himself the Zodiac was on the loose. He officially took at least 5 innocent lives, but bragged about many more. His terror wasn't just about the brutal acts themselves. He loved playing twisted games with the public and the press, sending a stream of taunting letters, often with these bizarre, complex cryptograms. These weren't just puzzles. They were part of his terror campaign, symbols of his massive ego, and a frustrating mystery that haunted people for decades. Now, his first big cipher, the Z408, was actually cracked pretty quickly, and it revealed a truly unsettling reason for his killings. But another one, the Z340, the one mailed to the San Francisco Chronicle in November 1969, stayed stubbornly silent. It was a 340-character insult, a monument to the fear he caused. Today, we're looking into how that silence was finally shattered and what those symbols had to say. Imagine looking at a grid of 340 symbols, crosses, circles, letters from alphabets you might not even recognize, and shapes that are just weird. That was the Z340. It looked like a random jumble, and it became the ultimate challenge for codebreakers worldwide, pros and amateurs alike. For 51 long years, it beat every single attempt to crack it. The FBI's own cryptanalysis unit looked at countless supposed solutions, but none of them panned out. This thing wasn't like the Zodiac's first major cipher, the Z408. A schoolteacher couple, Donald and Betty Harden, actually cracked that one within a week back in 1969. Their solution was chilling, almost gleeful from the killer. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. Ibiarai etemeth pity. The Z340, though, that was a whole different animal. It didn't have the obvious patterns codebreakers usually look for. Standard tricks, like frequency analysis, where you look for common symbols to stand in for letters like E or T, just didn't work. Theories were flying around. Was it some super complex polyalphabetic cipher where symbols meant different things? Was it a transposition cipher, where the letters were right but all mixed up? Or, as some started to think, was it just a sick joke? A meaningless scramble of symbols meant to drive everyone crazy? The Zodiac, after all, loved to manipulate people and watch the chaos. The years rolled by, decades even. The case got colder, but the Z340 stuck around, a glaring symbol of the Zodiac's unsolved mystery, a constant dare to anyone smart enough to try. Plenty of people tried, pouring thousands of hours into it, but the Zodiac's secret stayed locked up tight. The fact that the Z340 held out for so long really shows how tough it was. But then came the internet, and with it, new tools and fresh hope. Online forums and communities popped up, all focused on the Zodiac case. These places became hotbeds for people to share theories, argue about them, and test them out. And it was here that a new breed of hunter appeared, people armed not with guns and badges, but with algorithms and serious computing power. Meet David Aranchak, a software developer from Virginia, Sam Blake, an applied mathematician from Melbourne, Australia, and Jarl van Eyck, a computer programmer and warehouse operator from Belgium. These guys weren't your typical FBI cryptanalysts. They were passionate, ordinary citizens, hooked by the challenge and the thought of solving one of true crime's biggest puzzles. Aranchak had been poking at the Z340 since 2006, building software and hitting dead end after dead end. Blake, with his math skills, was trying out hundreds of thousands of ways the symbols might be read or twisted. And Van Eyck built this beast of a code-breaking program called Decoded, which could churn through possibilities way faster than any human. They didn't just team up overnight. It kind of grew out of that shared obsession in the online Zodiac world. They figured the Zodiac probably used some kind of classic cipher, but with some nasty twists thrown in to confuse everyone. The Z408 had been a homophonic substitution cipher, fancy words for a code where one letter can be represented by multiple symbols to hide common letter frequencies. But the Z340 seemed to have something extra, maybe a really complex way of rearranging letters or a totally weird reading order. So, the team started to test out all sorts of ideas. Blake, for example, cooked up over 650,000 different ways the cipher might be read, not just left to right, but up, down, diagonally, in spirals, you name it. These were then fed into Van Eyck's Decrypt software, which just chewed through them, looking for any hint of actual text. It was a massive job, like finding a digital needle in a haystack. They went through years of failed attempts and bad ideas before anything clicked, which just shows how dedicated they were. Cracking the Z340 wasn't really a single eureka moment. It was more like a slow burn of small discoveries, tons of trial and error, and the amazing power of teamwork. The team had a hunch the cipher wasn't a simple swap one symbol for another kind of deal. The first real clues started to surface when they began looking at really unconventional ways to read it. Instead of just going line by line, they started thinking about diagonal paths, kind of like how you find words in a word search puzzle. A big piece of the puzzle fell into place when Sam Blake started messing with how the Zodiac might have rearranged the symbols before even encoding them. Or maybe how the reading direction itself was the trick. He came up with a huge number of these possible shuffles. David Aranchak then took these versions and pumped them through Jarl van Eyck's Decrypt program. The software was smart. It would test these jumbled ciphertexts against what normal English looks like, searching for patterns that shouted, "Hey, this might be it." Then, on December 3, 2020, while Aranchak was running one of Blake's tweaked versions through Decrypt, something incredible started to happen. Bits of English words began to pop out. Phrases like trying to catch me and gas chamber actually started to form from that mess of symbols. That was the turning point. The team figured out the cipher was likely read diagonally, starting at the top left, then stepping down one row and two columns over for the next character, and so on. But it wasn't quite that simple. It looks like the Zodiac either messed up his own complicated code or maybe threw in a deliberate curveball. One part of the cipher just didn't line up right. The team found that if they nudged a particular character over a little fudge, the misspellings cleared up and the message made sense. They also found out the cipher was in 3 parts, and each part needed to be read slightly differently. The first 9 lines followed that diagonal pattern, then the next 9, and then the final 2. It was a complicated, multi-step puzzle, proof of the Zodiac's slyness, but as it turned out, not beyond a few dedicated minds with some powerful software. After all those hours, hundreds of thousands of duds, and years of staring into that cryptic mess, the Z340 finally gave up its secrets. On December 5, 2020, David Aranchak, Sam Blake, and Jarl van Eyck sent their solution to the FBI. Just a few days later, the FBI confirmed what they'd done. After 51 years, the Z340 cipher was solved. The world held its breath, and then the message came out. It was all in capital letters, with those classic Zodiac misspellings, and no punctuation at all. The Zodiac's voice, which had been trapped in that puzzle for so long, just boomed out from the past. And what it said, just as arrogant and bone-chilling as his other messages. The deciphered text read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise, so they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death." The misspellings, especially paradis for paradise, were a known Zodiac thing. He'd done it in the Z408 cipher and other letters. This kind of consistency was a big clue that they'd really cracked it. Those decades of silence were finally broken, not with a confession or a name, but with another dose of the killer's terrifying ego. So, cracking the Z340 didn't unmask the Zodiac Killer. It didn't give up his name, where he lived, or how to catch him. But what it did give us was an amazingly clear look into his mindset back in November 1969. Let's break this message down. I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. This is pure Zodiac. His taunting, his arrogant, and his clearly loving the chase and the fact that he's frustrating the police and the public. He saw his deadly game as entertainment, a way to feel powerful and in control. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. This line must have been a shocker for the codebreakers. About 2 weeks before the Z340 cipher was mailed on November 8, 1969, someone claiming to be the Zodiac had called into the Jim Dunbar Show, a big TV talk show in the Bay Area. During that call, the person supposedly said things like, "I'm sick and I don't want to go to the gas chamber." So, in his cipher, the Zodiac is directly talking about this very public event, saying it wasn't him, and using it to launch into his own twisted thoughts. This connection to a real-world, specific event was huge for confirming the decryption was right. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise, so they are afraid of death. This is probably the most disturbing part, and it echoes stuff from his Z408 cipher. The Zodiac's messed up idea of an afterlife where his victims become his slaves, and his belief that collecting these slaves would get him to paradise, his trademark misspelling, faster. It's a chilling peek into his grandiose and sick fantasy world. His saying he's not afraid of death or the gas chamber, California's execution method then, not because he's brave, but because he's actually looking forward to this slave-filled afterlife. He's comparing his supposed fearlessness to the terror he thinks everyone else feels about death because, in his mind, they'll have nothing in the afterlife. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death. Repeating that he's not afraid really hammers home his defiant attitude. That slightly jumbled bit, "My new life will be an easy one in paradise death," seems to just double down on his belief that death is just a doorway to a great existence, made easy by the slaves he's collected through murder. The phrase paradise death itself is creepily vague. Does he mean paradise and death, or a paradise found through death? The message didn't give up a name, but it absolutely cemented the Zodiac's known psychological profile. A narcissistic, attention-starved guy with a massive god complex, obsessed with control, and fueled by violent, almost religious fantasies. Solving the Z340 proved that these ciphers weren't just random scribbles. They were carefully crafted messages from the killer, meant to mock and mystify. Cracking the Zodiac Killer's 340-character cipher after 51 silent years is a pretty incredible story of human grit, teamwork, and just how far technology has come. No, it didn't unmask the Zodiac, and that's a frustration that still hangs heavy for investigators and the victims' families. But it did pull back the curtain on one of his most stubborn mysteries. The words brought into the light by David Aranchak, Sam Blake, and Jarl Van Eyck are a stark, cold reminder of the killer's chilling arrogance and his twisted reasons for doing what he did. There are still a couple of the Zodiac ciphers, the really short Z13 and Z32, that are technically unsolved. But they're so short that a verifiable solution is incredibly tough, maybe even down to pure luck. The Zodiac case itself? It's still open, a chilling reminder that even with a breakthrough like this, the killer's ultimate identity is still out there, unknown. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror definitely left its mark on history. What do you think about this chilling message, hidden away in the Z340 for over 5 decades? Does this decoded message give you any new ideas about the kind of person the Zodiac might have been? Drop your thoughts, theories, and reactions in the comments below. And hey, if you found this journey into one of true crime's most fascinating coded messages interesting, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more explorations of unsolved mysteries, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. What other secrets are still out there, just waiting for someone to find them?